Hello, everybody. Welcome to Shred's Takes. I'm Mike Shredder. Today's episode is going to be talking about the in-season tournament. As always, make sure that you like and subscribe to the channel and also follow the different social media handles for Shred's Takes podcasts below. Also, make sure you follow my Twitter, Mike Shred1, because I post a lot of sports info and podcast information on that as well. Appreciate that and hope you guys support the social media handles and this channel. Now, what I want to get into today, like I said, was the NBA in-season tournament. And the reason why I want to get into that is because this has been, I think, one of the more genius moves by the NBA in the last 20 years. And the reason why I think that is because now it's really negated the fact of load management being a problem, potentially. And that is the fact that if you give the players something competitive to play for, they're actually going to go fully all in and be available to play in those moments. You see it last night, the high level competition. I know the Lakers beat the Pelicans 133 to 89, but generally the competition has been very good in the play-in, right? You look at the Lakers and Suns from a couple days ago. You look at the Pelicans and Kings. You look at the Celtics and the Pacers, and you look at the Knicks and the Bucks. Even though the Knicks got blown out by the Bucks, it was very competitive in the first half. The guys are trying hard, they're playing hard, and it's important for the league. The headlines, though, while I think it's an incredible movement and a great way to make the league better going forward, I think the biggest thing to take away from it is just the emergence of young superstar potential talents. And that's Tyrese Haliburton, right? Which we're going to talk a lot about him and decipher him in just a couple minutes. But that's the first part of it. I think the second part of it is the fact that you get high level competition, as I mentioned. I think the third part of this thing to talk about a little bit is just the fan engagement. There's been a lot of fans excited about it, a lot of fans that are showing up to these tournaments and these games to watch the star talents play. And the fourth thing, like I mentioned before, is its player availability. You have a competitive tournament that allows players to actually care about something and want to be a part of something bigger than themselves and be able to compete for a championship, especially for younger teams that are trying to prove themselves, aka the Indiana Pacers. This is a great opportunity, right? And obviously the Lakers are trying to do that too, because LeBron definitely wants to have his name attached to the first in-season tournament championship. And you definitely know that's going to be another thing that he wants to add to the legacy, of course. So again, in-season tournament's been an excellent move, genius move by Adam Silver. I think probably one of his better moves obviously the NBA has done a lot of really good things, but I think this is one of his best ones because it's really negated a lot of the problems that the league had from a couple years ago. And I think it's now really put the league in a really good place, potentially going in the future if this thing continues to rise and get better as they continue to learn from maybe the successes and maybe the things that didn't go as successfully in the in-season tournament. Now, here's the things I want to talk about from last night, and that is just the different things from the winners of the games and the losers of the games, and just deciphering a little bit, just kind of the statistics, the overall themes I kind of got from each game, and then overall, I'm going to kind of get a take of who I think is going to win between Lakers and Pacers, and hopefully, I'll have a guest on to talk a little bit about the in-season tournament as a whole based on the championship. But let's talk a little bit about just kind of the Lakers and Pelicans first, because that game it was a blowout, so I kind of want to get that one out of the way because it wasn't as competitive. But I think the big thing to kind of talk about from this is just LeBron's greatness, right? LeBron has the highest scoring average for anyone who's playing year 21 or above in NBA history. He's averaging 25 points a game, while the next highest guy was Vince Carter, only averaged 7 points a game, right? So right now, it's incredible what he's been able to do. Last two games for LeBron, just to kind of throw some stats in here: 75% from three, 56.7% from the floor, 30.5 points a game. And he's also averaging, I think, only 1.5 turnovers. And he's averaging, I think, 9 assists right now, the last two games as well. So this is just showing you exactly what LeBron is and what he's been able to do. And he's just doing it efficiently. He's trusting his jump shot. He's reading the game really effectively. He's taking over when he needs to take over. Again, he's still a top 5, top 7 player in the league. And he's the oldest player in the league age-wise. It's incredible what he's been able to do. He looks younger than most of the guys in the court, and he was the best player on the court last night. It wasn't even close. And I have my gripes about Anthony Davis not being assertive enough, as I can talk about in the Phoenix matchup. But I do think the underlining thing with LeBron is LeBron just took over that game because the Pelicans are a good team with a lot of length and a lot of athleticism and a lot of energy. And the Lakers didn't make it anywhere close to a game after this first quarter. Another thing to kind of talk about is this is his first time scoring 30 points when playing less than 25 minutes. And he's the ninth player to have 30 points and 8+ assists with 0 turnovers in NBA history. So this is just showing you again the greatness of LeBron. But the bigger thing, though, I think for the Lakers, reason they won last night is you look at their rebounding total. Against Phoenix, they only out-rebounded Phoenix by 1. I think if you look at the last two games, though, they forced a lot of turnovers generally. But last night was about the rebounding. It was about the defense and the 3-point line against the Pelicans. So the Lakers last night had a 59-42 rebounding advantage, highlighted by Anthony Davis's 15 rebounds. And another big thing that kind of just put in factor is they forced 20 turnovers against Phoenix. That was a big reason they won that game because Phoenix shot better from the floor. They were more efficient from three, but they turned the ball over 20 times, which gave the Lakers a lot of opportunities to be successful. The big thing, though, to talk about, though, with this is you have the Pelicans getting held to 35.8% from the floor, and looking at just kind of the stats from last night, 22.2% from three. The previous game, the Pelicans shot 45% from three against the Sacramento Kings. Again, big difference in defensive level, obviously, between the Kings and the Lakers. The Kings are an offensive-minded team, don't really play great defense. But the Lakers, again, their ability to defend on the perimeter with their length from Taurean Prince to Cam Reddish to Max Christie to LeBron James to Rui Hachimura to Anthony Davis at the rim and on the perimeter. This is all the stuff that's going to make the Lakers good. And it's the consistency of it, right? And the ability to shoot threes at a high level. The Lakers shot threes obviously incredibly well last night as well. They shot in a really impressive, just did a really good job of just getting into the paint and kicking out the 3-point shooters. But some other statistics to throw out a little bit here was 31 assists last night, which is the third most they've had this season. That's obviously way bigger than their average, and they were able to get out in transition. They were able to get a lot of open shots. If they can shoot at a mid-level, and even like then not even just last night, but they can shoot at a decent enough level, they're going to be a really tough team to stop because LeBron looks a lot better this year than he did last year because of just the fact that his jump shot is just more efficient. This is the best 3-point shooting percentage. I was crazy, shooting 39% from three, which he never really has and has done in his career. And it's because he's trusting it, and it's because he's not thinking about it so much. And resorting to taking terrible threes all the time. He's taking in rhythm threes. He's trusting that shot. He's trusting his mid range, and it's opening up every avenue of his game. He's playing so much smarter than anyone else in the court, which has been the case for his 21 years. But it's so apparent now, just the way he can just process the game, the pace at which he plays. Anyways, let's just talk a little bit about just kind of the fact that this was their 9th win against a team 500 or better, which is tied for the best in the league with the Boston Celtics. So the Lakers are proving a lot of good things right now. And I think that what the Lakers need to do is just keep doing it consistently. And they'll be a team that definitely should be a top 4-3 team in the West. But they definitely can make the Western Conference Finals again if they have that level of defensive intensity, which they had, and if they can get the shooting to still be there. Now, Anthony Davis needs to play more consistent than he has, but I will see against Indiana going against Miles Turner. He needs to win that matchup because Miles Turner has been playing really good basketball. And that's, I think, going to be a key in the championship, which I'll talk about in just a second. But talking about the Pelicans a little bit, we have to talk about the fact that they shot 22.6% from three, shot 45.2% against the Kings. And Zion Williamson, I mean, I'm going to say right now, LeBron locked down Zion Williamson. You look at the shooting percentage, you'd be like, no, he didn't. He did. He forced him into a lot of charges because Zion does not trust his mid-range perimeter shot. Zion, unfortunately, still lives just too much in the paint, and LeBron just sat back and waited for him and anticipated where he was going to go, which is most likely trying to drive to his left hand. Look, Zion's a fantastic player, but Zion doesn't rebound very well. And again, he doesn't assert his dominance. Shaq made great points about it. Doesn't really run in transition, doesn't defend always at a high level consistently, and doesn't rebound consistently. And again, if you don't have that dominant factor of saying, I want the ball over possession, that's kind of going to be a big problem. And again, it was LeBron kind of beating Zion to spots, making it difficult for him. But again, get in the post, right? I like the fact that guys are saying he's a point forward, which I think is actually not a bad thing. I think that Zion has a great passing ability, but you also have to, balance it out, right? Where Zion can be that point forward that helps run the offense effectively, but also the ability just to throw Zion on the post and make him a finisher, so you got to balance both aspects of it. I think that's one thing from last night I saw is you definitely can keep him as a point forward because of his ability to attack downhill, but you need to be able to do that when you get switches onto 5 men. So they have to set the screens early and often, get those switches where he can attack and be effective as a point forward. And then if he doesn't have any options, he just go play in the post and be a finisher, right? He's really good at that as well. So I think he needs to be able to balance it a little bit. But I do think the one thing is that they allowed 43 points in the third quarter, which really was the difference in the ball game. They were outscored 43-17 in the third quarter. That was the second most points they've allowed in a quarter outside of 44 in the second quarter to Minnesota back in a game in November. So The Pelicans are a good team. They're going to be, I think, a team that will probably get a play-in spot. I think they are very talented. The one thing about the Pelicans, though, is the big thing is Zion needs to be more aggressive. I think defensively, they didn't play very well last night because they didn't defend the three very well because they allowed too much dribble penetration. It's tough to stop the dribble penetration against guys like Austin Reeves and LeBron James and those guys, but you have to be able to defend those dribble actions because otherwise guys are getting wide open threes. Now you're going to live with that maybe with the Lakers, but the Lakers hit them last night, and that was a big reason why they won by such a high margin. But the Pelicans, again, are a team that forces turnovers. They have a lot of energy. They're going to be perfectly fine. This is going to be a good teachable moment. I'm not worried about Ingram. I'm not worried about McCollum. And I love Herb Jones. I like Valanciunas. I like Jose Alvarado, Trey Murphy, Larry Nance Jr. when he comes back healthy. I like Dyson Daniels a little bit too. The one thing is just going to be where does Zion balance his game, right? Does he balance being dominant in the paint? And, he's really good at the rim, but he needs to be, you can't average 12 and a half points a game in two big games and expect to win consistently, right? They need him to be that superstar talent that he's proven in other years, but not at a consistent enough rate. And I think that's, again, he needs to trust his jumper a little bit more. I think he needs to balance when he's doing that point forward stuff, being able to pass and then being able to go right in the post and get, seal really close to the basket. He seals very far away from the basket, which makes things very difficult to be, because you can send a double really quick. You can prepare for that. Again, I can speak just from like an experience in college, right? If you catch the ball way out in the post, teams are going to be able to load the paint up. If you catch it right by the basket, it's very hard to plan and to be able to stop a guy, especially like Zion with his burst and his athleticism and his ability to get quick off the ground. That's something that he's the X factor. When they talked about it on TNT and they talked about it on ESPN, he's the X factor because they have the pieces to be a very good basketball team. But last night proved exactly the problem with a guy like Zion in spades. He's a great talent. He's a great player. But I do think that the problem with his game is that he doesn't consistently know how to balance his game and also exactly to exert the proper amount of effort consistently throughout the game, which is something he needs to just continue to get better at, and hopefully he will, because Willie Green's a fantastic coach. But now I want to transfer over to the Eastern Conference games to end off this segment. And my gosh, I think the team of the NCAA tournament is clearly Indiana Pacers, and the star emerging before our eyes is Tyrese Haliburton. To give you guys a little bit of stats about the Indiana Pacers as a whole before I get into Haliburton, because he needs probably about a couple minutes to explain how good he's been. The Indiana Pacers have the best offensive efficiency in NBA history, which is not a surprise. They were top, the Mavericks were top 5 under Rick Carlisle, and they had a great offensive team with Luka Doncic, running the point and having the ball in his hands too. This team is very different though, because this team's athletic. They're young. I know that the Mavs teams were like that too, but they're athletic across the board. They all can shoot it, and they're also a team, again, that shares it really well. They're first overall in the NBA in assists per game at 30.2. Also, another important factor to put in, they're 6th in threes. They thrive off drive and kick. They have the fastest pace of the NBA at 104 possessions in a game, or 104.17 possessions. Simple pick and roll offense. Their bench is incredible. Outscored the Bucks bench 43-13. 43-13 in a game that was a 9-point contest. Giannis talked about it. Giannis said how the bench did not produce. You look at the plus minuses, it's not terrible. It's a minus for a lot of the starters, except for, I think, Malik Beasley. But for the bench, it's like negative, like double digits in the plus minus, which is not good for the Bucks. And again, the Bucks don't have a consistent depth, I would say, compared to what Indiana's bench is. And Indiana's bench is good. And you look at also the fact that Tyrese Haliburton, to kind of talk about it, he has the best offensive rating in the entire NBA. To let that sink in for a second. And he does it with also not turning the ball over. Last 2 games, as I mentioned, 26.5 points, 14 assists, and 0 turnovers. That is something that's really important to look at. Really, I think, essential to look at, because it shows that you can run good offense. If you don't turn the ball over and you can hit threes, you can win the basketball game pretty easily. I think that's a huge factor. Another key factor, though, to be honest, too, is that he's the first player to ever have 20 points, 13 plus assists, and 0 turnovers 3 times in the season. And he would be the youngest player outside of Isaiah Thomas to lead the league in assists if he did it throughout the entire course of the season. So what to make of him? His game is perfect for this modern NBA. He plays with great pace. He really understands the game. He can beat any action. You put zone against him, he can beat that. You play drop coverage. He has an unorthodox jump shot. It goes in, and he's really effective at it. He can get downhill. He's got great floaters. And again, he's such a good passer that you don't always know if he's going to go to the rim or not and score. Like he knows how to keep his teammates involved. And the big thing with him is that you can tell his leadership too, and he wants it. He wants to be one of the best players in the NBA, and he's proving that right now. If he can stay consistent with this guy will be a first-team All-NBA player and a future great in this game. I mean, he just because his game translates really well. It's really easy to play with. He's not super, ball dominant. I know he has the ball in his hands a lot, but he does get the ball out of his hands. He can play off the ball. He's just a really talented player, and I love watching him play because he's got a humbleness about him. He's got a confidence. Again, you can celebrate like that because he has the confidence in his game. And he's a good teammate. I mean, I've heard him on many podcasts. He's a very likable star. Look, this team has a good shot at being the Lakers because the Lakers struggle, I would say, against fast-paced teams consistently, right? Because the Lakers are a bigger, more physical team. This will be an interesting matchup because who are you going to throw at him? Are you going to throw Taurean Prince, Jared Vanderbilt, maybe a little bit at Tyrese Haliburton? And again, they still have a good team outside of that, right? Miles Turner's been excellent. Obi Toppin contributes. Bruce Brown is definitely a big contributing piece. TJ McConnell off the bench. Isaiah Jackson's a big piece as well. So like this is obviously a team. And so I forgot even about like Benedict Mathurin and Buddy Hield. They have a good team from an offensive standpoint. They don't play great defense, but from an offensive standpoint, they play as good as any team. Aaron Nesmith's their only real defensive guy, and he does play good defense, but it's tough when you only have one guy Miles Turner blocks shots, but they don't have a good defensive team. And they're getting better, though, because they're getting more mature. And that's what happens to younger teams. I mean, you look at the OKC Thunder, right? You look at who are the youngest team in the NBA, the Orlando Magic, the second youngest team in the NBA, and the Pacers are the third youngest team in the NBA. All three of these teams are succeeding because of coaching, because of belief, and because of the fact that they all like playing at a pace that fits their games best. Orlando plays a little slower because they're a great defensive team. OKC can play a little bit of both because they're good offensively and defensively. But all these teams have ability to spread the court, and they're young, they're athletic. This is an important piece of the expansion of the league as a whole. And that's what leads me off with the Milwaukee Bucks, because I kind of want to talk about this just from a standpoint of looking at Milwaukee from this standpoint. Giannis played very well last night, 37 points. He did what he was supposed to do. The thing with the Bucks, though, right? The Bucks are a great offensive team, not good defensively at all. But if you look at their numbers, only 19 assists last night, while the Pacers, on the other hand, had 30 assists and only 9 turnovers. The Bucks had 12, right? And the Bucks also got out-rebounded by 5. You look at the fact that they had little structure at the end of the game. They didn't really know if they were going to go into a ball screen. They didn't know who they were going to be, if they were going to post up Giannis. Giannis talked about this. Their team needs more structure consistently. They're going to be fine because Giannis and Lillard are still figuring it out, but they're still playing pretty well. The big thing with the Bucks, and I'm going to talk about this probably as I go through, is their defensive intensity and what defense they think is going to work best. They went zone last night. It had its moments, but it wasn't overall super successful. And then man, I mean, they struggle in man because even though Brook Lopez is a fantastic shot blocker, he plays drop coverage against guards who can really shoot. And that's just because, again, he's slower footed on the perimeter. And that's not saying that he's not a good athlete or whatever, but because he blocks shots at a high level. But when you're playing drop coverage and the guard doesn't consistently get over the top and stop those ball screens, Indiana's going to carve it up. And it doesn't matter if you go zone or man. Tyrese Haliburton was just too smart and figured out how to get his teammates involved. Again, Milwaukee's got to find more structure offensively. If you're going to give Giannis the ball a lot more, or run pick and roll with Damian Lillard, you got to get into that quicker. So this is something that Adrian Griffin's going to have to still figure out, because this Milwaukee team is a very talented team. They're figuring it out. They're playing well. The big thing I saw from last night, though, is the structure on offense and the defense of identity. What defense are you going to consistently go with, and who is going to be your reliable perimeter defenders? Which right now, the only guy I would say that to is Giannis. But Giannis while he's a good on-ball defender, he's incredibly good in help. So you have to realize, like, the guards are not elite-level defenders consistently. So it's going to be interesting to see what the Bucks do going forward. But in terms of who I think is going to win the championship tomorrow, I'm going to pick the Pacers, man. I really do. And this is going to be probably a hot take. The reason why I say that is because I think their pacing is going to affect the Lakers. I think that the Lakers struggle against quicker, more athletic teams. If you look at the Thunder, who are a quicker, more athletic team, you look at The Mavs, they struggle against the Mavs. LeBron's going to bring it because they don't play any defense. And the one thing, and the reason why I pick him is just because I think that there's more consistency with the Pacers right now than there is with the Lakers. LeBron's been excellent. Anthony Davis gives you great defense and great rebounding, but scoring wise, he's very up and down. So I think the Pacers, based on the momentum, it's going to be a really close game, going to be a great game. I think the Pacers got it tomorrow. So we'll see how that transpires. And I'm hopefully going to be able to talk about it with a buddy of mine coming up soon as the tournament ends. As always, thank you so much for listening to this podcast. I hope you guys subscribe to the channel, like this video, and again, follow the social media handles for more information. Hope you guys have a great day.